Hey everyone, welcome to today's video. Welcome to the Gaming Daddy channel. So today I have a very short discussion video just to talk a little bit about exotics and how far we've come and the room for improvement. And I'm making this video because usually towards the end of a division game, I think it's one of the best times to actually start to, throw out a bunch of ideas, because some crazy ideas that we threw out from the division 1 towards the end of life, like actually a targeted loot system. I remember in April of 2018 or so, I made a video actually mentioning that, and somehow we got a targeted loot system like the kind we got in the summit. Now, yes, it came very late, but it was something that they put in the game. I guess maybe somebody else was talking about it. I don't know if anybody listened to my video. It only had 2,000 views on that subject. And so I'm feeling lucky, and I'm trying to throw some crazy ideas out there because I see the opportunity to make more fun aspects. And even before the Division 3 comes out, I don't think this is out of the question to actually put in place. And what is this? This is actually taking some of the exotics that are, somewhat in a mid-tier range and actually giving them an outlandish buff that makes them have some sort of a cosmetic improvement or some kind of a satisfying mechanism, not just giving them a damage buff or something, but giving them a mechanism that really increases player satisfaction when you're using them. Now, what do I mean by player satisfaction? So if you're using a weapon that's actually really strong, the only satisfaction that you most likely desire from it is that it will deal damage to the enemy NPCs. But some weapons usually take it up a notch. Example will be the Pestilence. The Pestilence gives you this extra satisfaction where if you knock out one enemy NPC over the course of a few seconds, if other NPCs are around that, enemy, they start to take that damage. And in some cases, they start to, go ahead and just start dying. And that kind of, player satisfaction is really cool. In some other, exotic weapon cases, you also have some really cool stuff that gives you some extra buffs and all of that. But then if you look at another exotic like the Scorpio exotic, it also brings that extra layer of satisfaction because you can hit one enemy NPC. Depending on the gear that you're wearing, you can pass on status effects onto other enemy NPCs, which can, in some cases, kill them because you purposed it to do that. And that kind of satisfaction of having an enemy NPC die behind cover is just absolutely fantastic, if anything. And I think the opportunity here is with the Merciless exotic. I took my Merciless exotic out yesterday, and I just went out and just, played just one mission with it. I ran into Dark Zone, did a few things, put a small build together. I used Braced on an Overlord chest piece. Nothing really crazy. I was trying some explosive stuff. I used a little bit of crits with Grupo Sombra. I got the gift that's on sale at the Dark Zone, by the way. If you don't know what that is, it's actually a named item that is very hard to get, but it's being sold at the Dark Zone. If you need to go into Dark Zone and farm credits, this is probably the weekend to do that and buy this item. And so running around, I just kind of noticed something, that this weapon number 1 has actually been improved. It's actually very strong in the way that it works, but it doesn't have that second layer of satisfaction. Now I get it. You have the ability to prime a target and then get them to, basically blow up. But, a lot of times that explosion is basically far off. And in some cases, the explosion doesn't necessarily take out, the enemy NPCs. I think if they really wanted to do that, they could make the weapon actually work somewhat like the Pestilence. Now, you can balance it out and take that damage that you already primed an enemy NPC for and maybe split and spread that damage over the course of multiple enemy NPCs in that area of effect. And you can do it in a really cool way, based on just a few modifications, because I know the developers are massive. They're actually pretty talented. Some of the stuff that they pull off in the gaming world is insane in regard to programming and all. But, many gamers don't necessarily see nor appreciate that. But I'm telling you, this game is way ahead of its time when it comes to shooting and RPG mechanics. It's just insane, some of the things that they can pull off basically in a multiplayer game. And I think if they can take that little small aspect where if you're priming an enemy NPC and the enemy NPC gets an explosion, I think that damage should actually be spread out against other enemy NPCs and give them basically a timer where they each detonate after, basically an interval. So basically a small interval of like maybe a fraction of a second or 2 fractions of a second. One enemy NPC gets an explosion, another one gets an explosion, another one gets an explosion. I think that really brings a little bit of fun aspect to the game. Now, this may not be implemented in the Division 2, but I think just from the ideas that they used to implement just the Scorpio and the Pestilence really does say that they have a lot of good ideas. But like I always have suspected and do know, I know personally, and this is my opinion, that the Dark Zone and the PvP side of the game really does hold back the amount of outlandish things that they can really do. I mean, it's obvious. Sometimes they bring out something and in quote, it's busted broken. But, ideally, I think they're using those numbers to maybe lure people and create interest, which they then eventually nerf those things. But those things in many cases have to be nerfed for the sake of PvP. Playing against enemy NPCs like on Legendary, you basically need all the help you can get. In fact, right now, if you had perhaps the Foundry Bulwark original version from the PTS when it first was introduced, and you can take that into the Summit, you'll probably have a better chance than you actually do without it, because the Summit, on Legendary is actually insane. So I don't see much of a problem with a lot of these outlandish mechanics making their way into PvE, and I think that's where the opportunity is. And even if they don't implement something like that, there's nothing wrong in implementing it perhaps in a future game down the road, or while we're waiting for the Division 2 cycle to maybe run all of its course. Perhaps a developer can actually take it and say, let's just make the Merciless something of a crazy weapon. They could also add some sort of a tank busting mechanism, which people actually were using at the onset of the game, and use it as kind of a celebration. What I mean by that is, I remember initially when this weapon was revealed, one of the really cool things was people were running raids with it, and they were using it to take down a lot of those chungas. The chungas, the big heavy NPCs that will come and try to activate some kind of a huge countdown that would destroy everything. And these things were basically doing so much damage to them, and it was because it was actually broken. It wasn't programmed right. Why not take something of that, that sort and meme it into the, the exotic weapon and make it, work towards enemy NPCs in that way? You don't have to make it work for players in a PvP perspective. You can section it out and keep it for, the PvE and exclusively as that. And so that's pretty much, one of the things I wanted to discuss specifically, because I was really enjoying this, the run. And I was like, man, I really wish that there was just this extra layer of satisfaction. And I think with this whole idea, there are many other things that could be, referenced that are also falling short of their own potential in the Division 2. There are many, many talents, many weapons, many kinds of mechanisms, many skills that are really sitting there and not getting a lot of love and getting a lot of attention, not because players don't want to run them, but because they are not, in some cases, strong enough, or in some other cases, they don't provide that extra layer of satisfaction that some of the, the mechanics do provide in the game. But that's pretty much my take on this. If you're running the Merciless or you have a build with it, feel free to let me know in the comment section. I'll try it out. If something that you do is unique from the way I did run mine, I'll be happy to, check out your idea and see perhaps there's something I'm missing. But I thought it was a good weapon. I really did think it did have a lot of potential as well. But at the same time, Massive right now can't just stop at just what's good. They can move the needle a little bit and experiment and see how the community responds, and perhaps take that feedback into maybe their Division 3 development. But that's it from me today. Thank you guys so much for your time and audience. I appreciate you guys a lot. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Let me hear what you think in the comment section. Thank you so much once again. Peace out.